Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, today we are diving into one of the absolute most fascinating and honestly most complex transformations happening on the planet right now, the global solar energy boom. But we're not just here to cheer on renewable energy, we're going to unpack a pretty massive paradox. See, on one hand, solar is exploding. It's experiencing this unprecedented exponential growth, and it's cheaper than ever. But on the other hand, the very system making all this cheap energy possible is built on some incredibly deep structural fragilities and a staggering amount of geographic concentration. So let's look under the hood of this massive global machine and see what's really going on behind the panels on our roofs. To really wrap our heads around the sheer scale of what we're dealing with here, just look at this number, 703 gigawatts. According to the latest industry data, that is the record-breaking volume of solar modules shipped globally in 2024 alone. And about 566 gigawatts of that was actually installed. To put that into perspective for you, the total cumulative installed solar capacity in the whole world has now hit 2.2 terawatts. I mean, we are churning out and deploying solar at a scale that was literally unimaginable just 10 years ago. It's wild. But, and this is the crucial point, we have to ask at what cost? Yes, we have record cheap solar power, but what is that costing our global supply chain's long-term stability? When a single industry scales up this massively and this fast, it naturally creates some incredible dependencies, hidden environmental costs, and some really tight material bottlenecks. So we've got to ask ourselves if the system that got us these dirt cheap prices is actually resilient enough to power the future of global energy. To answer that, here is our roadmap for today. 1. The solar boom paradox. 2. Unpacking the supply chain. 3. The geographic monopoly. 4. The carbon footprint dilemma. 5. The next technology race. And 6. Building a hybrid future. All right, let's jump right into part 1, the solar boom paradox. Unprecedented growth versus hidden fragility. So how exactly did the solar industry get to be this dominant? Just look at this steep trend line. This is what we call Swanson's law, or the PV experience curve. It basically shows that historically, for every time we double the cumulative global shipments of solar, the average price of a module drops by about 23%. Massive, rapid scaling literally slashes prices. In fact, in 2024, average module prices plummeted by 33% year over year, down to just 8 cents per watt. That's mostly due to massive overcapacity. But, this hyper-efficiency, it's a total double-edged sword. It drives crazy growth, sure, but it also floods the market with oversupply and squeezes manufacturing margins so tight that it forces all the competition right out of the game. Moving on to section 2, let's unpack this supply chain, taking it all the way from rock to renewable energy. To really grasp the fragility hiding behind those falling prices, we have to look at the physical reality of a solar panel. It's not magic, right? It's a heavy, intense industrial process broken down into 5 foundational stages. First, extracting raw materials. Second, manufacturing components. Third, global distribution. Fourth, the actual installation. And fifth, which often gets forgotten, end-of-life recycling. Think of these 5 steps as interlocking gears in one single massive global factory. If one gear jams, the whole machine stops. Let's actually zoom in on those first couple of steps, because we don't just print solar panels out of thin air. We mine literal rock, quartzite. That rock gets blasted with intense heat and chemicals to make metallurgical-grade silicon, which then has to be super purified into polysilicon. From there, it's melted into ingots, sliced into wafer-thin sheets, doped up with chemicals to become actual solar cells, and then finally wired and framed behind glass. The main takeaway here? It is a massively energy-intensive industrial journey just to make one panel. Okay, section 3, the geographic monopoly, or as I like to call it, the world's assembly line. Now that we know how complicated making a panel is, we really need to look at where it's happening, because this is where the vulnerabilities scream out at you. Just look at the sheer dominance of the red bars on these charts. China has built a near-absolute monopoly on global manufacturing capacity. In 2024, China controlled an unbelievable 96% of global polysilicon production, plus 97% of wafers, 92% of cells, and 86% of module production. The rest of the world, the U.S., Europe, everyone else, barely even registers, hovering around 1 to 3% in most of these categories. So why does this matter so much? Well, think back to our assembly line metaphor. When one single region controls 96% of the world's polysilicon, which is literally the foundation of the whole technology, it creates incredible economies of scale. That's why your panels are so cheap. But man, it leaves the entire global energy transition totally exposed to systemic shocks. A trade dispute, a natural disaster, a logistical bottleneck in one specific area, and suddenly the whole global deployment of solar could just grind to a halt. Which brings us perfectly to Section 4, the carbon footprint dilemma, the environmental cost of megascale. There is a really fascinating and frankly kind of ironic environmental paradox hiding right in the middle of the green energy revolution. We're basically looking at a tale of two factories. On one side, you have the mega factories. They have massive scale, they're super cost efficient, and they pump out millions of panels. But they heavily rely on local energy grids that are largely powered by coal. Then, on the other side, you have smaller, localized production hubs in regions with much cleaner energy mixes, like hydro or wind. They emit way less carbon, but they just cannot compete with the rock-bottom prices of the mega factories. And get this, over 88% of a solar panel's entire life cycle carbon emissions happen during that intense manufacturing phase we talked about. A single module made in China emits about 490 kilograms of CO2 equivalent, compared to around 476 kilograms for one made in the U.S. It all comes down to the energy mix of the grid powering the factory. Megafactories are great at utilizing materials efficiently, but that reliance on coal-heavy electricity means there is a steep carbon price paid before that panel ever generates its first spark of clean energy. All right, Section 5, the next technology race, pushing the efficiency limits. So the industry is incredibly concentrated. Margins are basically zero, and they're facing carbon pressure. What do? They try to innovate their way out of it. Let's look at the tech that's completely changing the game right now. You're going to hear the acronym TOPCon a lot. It stands for Tunnel Oxide Passivated Contact. For a long time, a tech called PERC was the gold standard, but we've basically hit its physical limits. You can't squeeze any more power out of it. So, to get more electricity from the exact same amount of sunlight and space, the whole industry is aggressively pivoting to TOPCon. It's a relentless race for performance that is completely resetting the global manufacturing baseline. So let's compare them. Standard PERC cells tap out at around 21.6% efficiency, and they're about 10 to 15% cheaper to make because it's a simpler process. TOPCon, though, it pushes that efficiency all the way up to 23.2%. The catch is, it requires these really advanced thin film layers and specialized materials, which means it's way more complex and expensive to manufacture up front. But because the market absolutely demands maximum power output per square inch, TOPCon is set to dominate the standard all the way through 2032. In this race, efficiency definitely wins. Finally, Section 6, building a hybrid future where efficiency meets resilience. Okay, so we've looked at the massive scale, the choke points, the carbon footprint, and the new tech. Where on earth does this global machine go next? Well, first it has to beat some hard physical limits. This stat right here absolutely blew my mind. In 2024, the solar industry consumed 27.6% of the entire world's silver supply, over a quarter. Because silver is heavily used to wire up the front and back of these high-efficiency cells like TOPCon. Guys, we literally do not have enough silver on the planet to keep scaling solar like this. The industry has to innovate out of this bottleneck, like moving to copper plating, just to survive its own success. So how do we actually resolve this paradox? It's not just about cranking out more panels. It's about engineering a smarter system. We need a hybrid model. We have to balance the sheer cheapness of global megafactories with the security of having localized regional production hubs. We need to actively invest in cleaning up the manufacturing grids to drop that upfront carbon cost. We desperately need to figure out recycling for when millions of these panels die. We have to ditch our silver dependency. And we need to double down on research for next-gen tandem cells that can absolutely shatter that 30% efficiency barrier. Look, we have all benefited tremendously from rock-bottom solar prices. It's been great for deployment. But that cheapness comes from fierce competition and massive hyper-concentrated scale. True resilience, a diverse supply chain, green manufacturing, material sustainability, that is not free. So I'm going to leave you with this question to think about. What premium are we actually willing to pay for long-term energy security? Because the cheapest panel you can buy today, well, it might just not be the most reliable foundation for tomorrow. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the systems around you, and I'll see you next time.